Mr. Jonathan Yabot will lead the third plenary session, Role of Leaders in Building a Culture of Innovation Online. Now, who is Mr. Jonathan Yabot? Now, Mr. Jonathan Yabot is actually the proud Filipino winner of the hit Asian reality TV show, The Apprentice Asia. For winning the show, he served for 1 year as the Chief of Staff of AirAsia, reporting directly to Malaysian business mogul Tony Fernandez, based in Kuala Lumpur. Now, born and raised in Manila, Jonathan is a multi-awarded marketer and HR professional with over 15 years of experience in Southeast Asia, dubbed even as the Asia's millennial guru. He is actually the Asia's leading motivational speaker on topics involving leadership, talent of the development, Gen Y workers, and office productivity. Jonathan is actually the author of three best-selling motivational books, From Grit to Great, Fast Forward, and Single Taken, or Building My Empire. Now, which offers career tips and advice for aspiring corporate millennials. By record, he is the only Filipino author today able to penetrate the Southeast Asian markets of Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, and Indonesia as a certified best-selling author. As well as Jonathan today is the founder and managing director of his marketing consultancy firm, the JY Consultancy and Ventures, which offers actually marketing and talent optimization services to startups and Fortune 500 companies in Asia. Now, to help us create opportunities for innovation, may we call on a partner and another special guest, Mr. Jonathan Yabut. Okay, hi Jonathan.
Good morning. Thank you for the kind introduction. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. I hope everyone is in full swing. It's the best time for lunch, but I hope you still have some time to learn something new. So can I please request in the chat box, could you please give me an exclamation mark if you guys are ready to start? Pakitype nga yan. Just want to see the energy from our participants.
Okay, exclamation marks. Please chat
I
in your...
I also don't know yet our participants well. I don't get to see you face to face and eye to eye. So at least could you please type your company or which industry are you coming from? That will be great to see. So I can check you guys out. There you go. I'm seeing some exclamation marks now in the chat box. Very good. I know that our participants are coming from YouTube. So there's going to be around 15 to 10-second lag. So I'm going to be waiting for your responses. Ayan, more exclamation marks. So I have some participants typing now. We have folks from Macare Medicals. Thank you for typing that. We had from Shared Services, folks from e-commerce. So it's very good. We have a very diverse set of participants. Thank you. Telecommunications as well. We have BPO. That's great. So this is our topic. Look at the screen. From candles to light bulbs, the art of building a culture of innovation. So as I share my screen, this topic is about, since a lot of us here are from HR, a lot of us here are managers and leaders, our responsibility is to help our people build that culture, not only from leaders, but also down to the bottom, down to the staff, down to the associates themselves. So this is our company. We specialize in organizational behavior, whether it be about public speaking, business writing, motivation, or leadership. We help organizations propel their employees to success. We take pride for having conducted our sessions not only in Southeast Asia, but in many parts of the world. If you happen to see your company's logo on the screen, we thank you because you've been part of our success for the past almost a decade now as well. Melody is coming from GSK. You know, I came from that company proudly from GSK a decade ago. It's where I learned so much of my leadership skills as well. Okay. So this is going to be a quick session. So I'm going to be asking you the following things. Number one, please keep the chat box as noisy as you can. Remember, I'm only as good as the energy you give to me. Number two, I'm going to be asking some polls from time to time. So type your answers, letter A, letter B, or letter C. And then later on, if we do have time, we'll reserve it for some questions. Remember, this is not a recorded webinar. This is not a podcast. This is a live interaction. So please take advantage of what's happening between you and I. Ask some questions later on. Okay. I'm also going to be giving away some prizes for our participants. Can I get a letter P as in prize if you're up for that? Just so I can energize everyone in the room. So the only prize I can give to you is the prize of learning. So I'll be giving away 5 free tickets to our participants for today. And I'll be conducting a webinar on December 3. This is on Friday. Leadership in Time of Quarantine. It's an online workshop to be conducted on Zoom for managers, leaders, and supervisors. I'll be asking a trivia question later on or a visual puzzle. So you make sure that you are attentive because the fastest fingers who get to type the correct answer in the chat box, I'm going to call you out and you'll be the winner. Okay? So I'm looking at the chat box. Lots of letter P from our participants. Very good. You're in full swing. Let's get to business. First warm up question. What's the one thing that you significantly learned during the course of the pandemic? I'm sure you have lots, but choose only one. In my case, if I were to choose, I learned how to appreciate further how life can be short, especially when you're threatened with your survival with the pandemic. I learned how to appreciate relationships, friendships, relationship with your family and your loved ones as well. Queen B from the chat box says patience. Okay, right? Patience, I agree. Because if you've been patiently waiting in your house for too long, wanting the pandemic to end, you're going to be mustering up lots of patience indeed. Okay? How about the rest? Value the simple things, according to Janet Manalo. Von Angeli David says resilience and creativity. Malise says learn to appreciate more. And another one says embrace the changes and be ready. Thank you. Speaking of innovation, because that's going to be our topic for today, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 as the highest, could you please type in the chat box, how innovative do you think you are? I'm also going to test if you exactly know what innovation means, because there has to be a textbook definition for this. Could you please rank? 10 as the highest, 10 also means it's perfect. So you might want to give yourself a lower number other than 10. By the way, Janice Brinas also typed mental health and self-care. That's also important. That's also the one thing that I appreciated. So I'm looking at the chat box. Lots of number 6. Number 7 ba to? Yes, 7 and 8. Okay. And mukhang number 8. It seems like number 8 is our median response from our participants. Okay, very good. But what is innovation? Before we even be confident in saying that we are innovative in the first place. So innovation is, please take note, it has to be applied. It is the application of better solutions, better meaning it is progression from level 1 to level X that meets new requirements, sometimes needs that are unarticulated or existing market needs. I also want to emphasize that innovation is the pursuit of applying disruptive techniques, meaning it's something that you have never thought of before. Sometimes people think it's a taboo, but now because you see the benefits of it, you acknowledge it as something that's applicable. People might confuse, by the way, innovation with creativity. John, ano ba pagkakaiba? If I'm creative, can I also be innovative at the same time? Not necessarily. Creativity can be simply about fusing two ideas and creating a new one, but it doesn't have any practical application. So, for example, the painting of Mona Lisa, we can say that it is creative, but it's not innovative at all. Why? Because it's simply art. It's something that entertains you, it's something that inspires you, but it doesn't have any practical application that improves the lives of other people. Can I get an exclamation mark if we appreciate the difference? So, if you're creative, you don't necessarily are innovative. However, we also have to identify innovation requires a level of creativity. You can't be innovative if your mind is not able to think outside the box. You can't be creative if you do not see through other people's perspectives and through other people's lenses. A few disclaimers also about innovation, because I see a lot of HR practitioners and also leaders and managers. Of course, you're asking by now, how do I make my people innovative? How do I make my teams innovative? First and foremost, just because something is innovative, it doesn't mean that people are going to use it or buy it. So a very interesting talk, a TED talk in 2015 by Bill Gross. He asked the question in his TED talk, when we look at the most innovative companies, especially the unicorns of Silicon Valley, examples of them are Airbnb, LinkedIn, or Uber. Do you notice that there's something common among all of them? And that is they became successful after 2009, sometime in 2009 and 2010. So Bill Gross asked the question, what was the reason why they succeeded? Is it timing, execution, the idea, the business model, or the funding? Could you please type in the chat box, what do you think is the reason for their success? Letter T, timing, E for execution, I for idea, B for business model, or F for funding? I'm going to wait for your responses. Let's wait for that in the chat box. The first time I saw this question, my initial response was, of course, it's idea. If you don't have a good idea, it won't work. But I'm looking at the chat box right now. I'm looking at the participants as well. Mukhang halo-halo ang ating mga sagot. So I'm looking at some people are typing letter T, timing. Some people are typing letter I, idea. Some people are typing letter E, execution. The correct answer is timing. And it's very interesting because Airbnb and Uber happened sometime in 2009 when the global financial crisis happened. Remember that time? A lot of people lost their jobs, a lot of people were unemployed. It was super effective because it was the same time when people were looking for jobs. They were looking for side income and side hustle. So it did perform well, right? It wasn't because it was the best idea, it was because the market was ready for it. Can I get an exclamation mark if you appreciate that? One example I'd like to share in the Philippines is Gcash. Gcash is more than 10 years old. It was way back in 2000, in 1998, 1999. And yet during that time, it was so innovative, but so few people were using it. Bakit? Because Gcash during that time was so hard to use. It had a lot of SMS codes. Remember that time? For you to be able to pay your bills, you have to type in SMS, pay space Meralco, space the amount, space, and then type 2223 or whatever it is. It was so tedious, people were not ready to use it. But what is the reason why Gcash became so prevalent in our lives later on? That's because the internet enabled it in 2020, 2019. The pandemic required people to pay in contactless ways, right? And also, the internet became fast and smartphones became also more advanced, such that we can scan QR codes. So, Gcash, even if it was innovative way back in 1999, it wasn't at all used. It was only effective later on when the market was ready for it. So please take note, you may have the most innovative idea in the world, but if it's not the right timing, it will also not succeed. Okay? Second disclaimer, innovation is not always deliberate. Please take note, maraming aksidente ang nangyayari bago ka maka-innovate. And many times, you were not expecting it to happen. For example, I came from the pharmaceutical industry, and one of my favorite case studies is Viagra. We all know that Viagra, or sildenafil as its generic name, is meant for erectile dysfunction. But did you know that it was originally created to manage a heart condition called angina, which causes chest pains? Initially, the participants who were part of the clinical study, they had a side effect that had nothing to do with the heart. It had to do with their sexual organs. And so Viagra wasn't just used for angina, it became a drug instead for erectile dysfunction. Right? It was accidental at the end of the day. Another example is the pacemaker. So it's that very small device that you implant into the heart cavity if ever you have heart defects. Did you know that it was originally created to simulate the heartbeat? It was supposed to be an external gadget. But because it was creating very noticeable electric impulses, micro impulses, that are good enough to pace the heartbeat, it became another gadget for the heart. Another example, I'm sure you're familiar with how the antibiotic was invented. I hope you were listening to your biology high school teacher when you were kids. The antibiotic was created by Dr. Alexander Fleming when he accidentally left the mold in a bacteria culture and he went out for a vacation for 2 weeks. He left it and noticed that the mold actually was the one that's killing the bacteria at the end of the day. And so the first ever antibiotic, which is penicillin, was invented. Can I get another exclamation mark? So innovation is not something that you discover deliberately. It's not something that you research. It's not something that you work for day and night. Sometimes you also have to have faith and destiny that it becomes a form of accident in this case. Okay. Finally, number three, innovation isn't always the solution to a problem. Please take note, we have a tendency to think that innovation is always about kailangan may ginagawa ka. Kailangan meron kang tinatrabaho. I think that's often what we see in the companies. We often think that for an employee to be the best employee of the year, dapat masipag. But I also want to challenge that idea because sometimes commission of action is not always a good thing. I'll give an example. Look at this glass of water. Could you please tell me what is the best solution to make it clearer? So you have mud, it's mixed with water. What will be your next step if I tell you that you have to make this clear water? I'll give you a few seconds for this. Are you going to use a certain device? Are you going to use a certain gadget? What are you going to do? So I'm looking at the chat box right now. So some people are typing filter. Okay. Some people will type lagyan ng Clorox, for example. That's fine. But I also want to challenge that idea. Do you really need to do something? What if the solution is to do nothing at all? Right? Because sometimes the solution for this is to wait and let it stay still. Can I get an exclamation mark if you appreciate that? Sometimes for muddy water to be clearer, all you need to do is to wait. And this is what innovation can also be. Innovation is not just about adding or acting. Innovation can also about doing nothing, deleting, or simplifying things. I want to emphasize that because we're very obsessed na dapat may ginagawa para may maimbento. Sometimes it's also about letting go of other things, deleting the complications, and making a gadget or an apparatus also simpler. Okay? When I was working in AirAsia way back in 2012, 2013, one of the biggest issue of organizations in this case was, hey, wait a minute, a lot of our passengers are not buying the tickets when they go to this page. And they were asking, why is that? And that's because there were so many blanks. So many blanks that people did not like submitting so much private information. So what did we do? We tried to lessen the blanks. We simplified it, and it led to a 20% increase in our sales. By the small virtue of simplifying the steps, we got more people buying tickets. Can I get a letter T as in tickets if we appreciate that? Right? So for us, being able to be innovative also means that you have to simplify things at the end of the day. As HR practitioners, as leaders and managers, you might also want to ask, should we always keep on buying software so that our employees can get the job done fast? Or is the real solution, can we minimize the number of requirements that we ask from our employees? Are we asking our people to sign too many documents? Are there too many people approving a document? 40 signatories para lang ma-approve ang isang document, right? And by the way, that doesn't even require innovation. I want to highlight this because we're so obsessed na kailangan it has to be so spectacularly innovative just for it to work. Sometimes it could be just going back to basics to get things done. Okay? So the last part, the second part of my session now is, John, okay, I get what innovation is. How do I build a culture of innovation among my teams? So I'd like to share two things. And tip number one, innovation thrives in organizations where people willingly accept other people's perspectives. Meaning, even if there's a dominant way of thinking, you celebrate other people's diversity. Can I ask the participants, when learning a new skill in your company, which one works for you best? Letter A, I learn best by reading a manual or listening to someone. Letter B, by watching videos or looking at an infographic. Letter C, by doing it myself, I make a mistake and then I repeat again. Could you please type? If I were to answer this question, mine will be letter B because I'm a visual person. I have to look at the photo, at an infographic, or watch a video. I'm looking at the chat box. So halo-halo ang mga sagot. May mga iba, letter A. I'm seeing a lot of letter C from our participants. Very good. What does this entail for many of us? Here's a quick case study. In your company, which style of learning works best for your employees? When you cascade a new policy in a town hall meeting, in a virtual Zoom session, for example, what kind of learning is applicable for your folks? Is it auditory? Because a lot of people are auditory learners. They learn best without any video, without any slides, by listening through lectures and conversations. Some people are visual learners. Hindi nila ma-absorb ang information if there are no photos, videos, and presentations. Another example, some people are kinesthetic. They need to have a case study or case simulation before they understand what you're trying to tell them. What do we mean by innovation in this context? For an organization to be innovative, you have to celebrate all types of learning. This is why I don't like it when you're a motivational speaker and you've been talking for 1 hour at ni isang slide, wala ka man ng pinapakita. You're not motivating, you're giving a sermon. If you have a different set of audiences, be more visual as much as you can. Show some photos, show some slides, show some videos. If you have people who are kinesthetic learner, add online contests, add exercises, put some breakout sessions. The more you allow them to celebrate their differences, the more ideas can be exposed and can be raised by other folks. Can I get an exclamation mark? My best type of learning in this case is I try to accommodate everything. You do an auditory, for auditory learners, make sure that you speak loud and clear. And also that you enunciate the words properly. Visual means that you have good slides that get their attention. And kinesthetic, you make sure that they type something in the chat box or they participate in an online contest as well. Speaking of which, this mantra works in innovative companies that my way is not the only way. Pakilagay nga sa chat box. Could you please type that as a commitment? My way is not the only way. I want my organization to be innovative, and the only way to do that is to celebrate that I am not the only source of ideas. I can learn from my seatmates. I can learn someone else. And when I challenge your idea, it's not because I'm against you. It's because I'm asking for a healthy debate. Because we're after the best idea in this team. My way is not the only way. Right? We call this as perspective taking. The acceptance that your belief is not the only valid belief. There are many ways to do the same thing. I want to make a disclaimer, iba po ang belief sa facts, okay? Because I see on social media, a lot of people are trying to say, that's my belief, please respect it. There is a difference between believing that 1 plus 1 equals 4 versus disputing that that is actually a false accusation, okay? Belief is about different styles of leadership. Belief is about believing that my way of presenting using font style Cambria is good, and I think that Langdon is the best font. And I respect your opinion if you think that Verdana or sans serif is the better font. That's a perspective that I will respect in this case. That's a belief. Okay? Perspective taking is also the practice of casting a healthy amount of self-doubt that your source of information needs to be validated first before you share it or before you believe in it. Your perspective is something that I don't have, and so I will take it on. I will try to integrate it into mine so I become a better person. Right? That is perspective taking. Finally, since we have a lot of HR practitioners in the room, when you recruit employees in your teams, kapag nag-interview na kayo ng mga candidates, what philosophy do you apply? Do you apply culture fit? And in culture fit, which is a 1990s or 2000s way of doing it, culture fit is when you say, kaugali niya yung mga empleyado sa company na to. He is the harmonizing type. He will blend in easily. Let's hire him. And there's a problem with that. If you keep on hiring people who are all the same, you're hiring clones of each other. From time to time, do not just hire based on culture fit. Also hire based on what we call as culture add, in which you say, she's not like the rest of the employees, but she's the challenging type. I want to hire her because she can give a fresher set of eyes. She can contribute a different set of DNA to our employees who do not have her skills, who do not have her talents. And I want her to positively infect the other employees to be like her as well, so that the gene pool of the organization is even stronger. Can I get the letter A if we are appreciating culture add? Culture fit is good, but from time to time, add also the concept of culture add in this case. Another one, wag lang lagi na we want workers who work fast and always have a sense of urgency. If everyone in your employee base works too fast, all of you are going to work with haste. From time to time, also say something like, yes, we want efficient and effective workers, but we also need workers who know how to pause the button and who know what to value, what to prioritize, and focus on at the end of the day. Don't just be obsessed with culture fit, be obsessed with culture add. To become innovative is to embrace that other people can contribute to the gene pool of your organization. Right? There's this beautiful quote that I love from Abraham Maslow, the father of population theory. And he says, if you only have a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. If you think that HR is just all about compensation and benefits, ang tingin mo sa mga empleyado, palamunin. But if you see yourself from HR perspective as someone who is a servant, someone who is going to propagate better culture, you see your employees as your ally, as your multiplier effect in the rest of the organization as well. Okay? Let's continue. And before we do that, let's give away our promised prize now. Let's give away 5 winners tickets to our Leadership in Time of Quarantine workshop happening on Zoom. It's a monthly webinar that we open to the public. The ticket is worth 499 pesos. You can also register in our website, jonathanyabut.com. But for this specific session, I'm going to give away 5 free tickets for those who get to answer my question. And get ready your fingers because you have to type your answer now. My question is this. Okay. If you want to answer, you can also add on Viber if you cannot type in the chat box. But my question is this. Assuming that the blocks are stacked up against each other, how many blocks are there in total? Okay. How many blocks are there in total? Let's see your response. We're only going to be picking 5 answers, 5 correct answers, by the way. Okay. So I'm looking at the chat box right now. It seems like we got some correct answers. The correct answer is 9. There are 9 blocks. So let me call out the following participants. They are, let me just scroll up. There you go. Hannah Orquia, Stephen Militante, Melasorej Francisco, Apple Joy Bakilan, and finally, Jennifer Laguerder. Congratulations. How do you claim your prize? Look at the bottom part of the screen. It says there, winners claim your prize. So please scan the QR code, or if you cannot scan right now, copy the website link into the browser so we can get your email addresses and we will contact you shortly. Okay, let's give an exclamation mark to our winners before we end the session with the last part. Very good. Thank you. Congratulations. Again, that is on December 3, Friday, 3:30 to 5 p.m. Leadership in Time of Quarantine. Please take a photo, take a screenshot so you can also remember what's happening, what's going to happen soon. Okay. Last commercial. If you're into podcasts, I'd like to invite you to listen to our podcast, which we just dropped last week. We're now on second episode. If you love listening to career management, leadership, and motivation, our podcast is available on the QR code. It's available on Spotify, and the title is From Grit to Great. So we hope you get to listen to our podcast soon. Okay? Let's end the session with tip number 2. Innovation thrives when you champion psychological safety in your daily routine. Can I ask the participants on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how confident are you to ask questions or to challenge ideas during meetings? Could you please type? How confident are you to ask questions or challenge ideas in a meeting? I'd give myself an 8 most of the time. It could go lower if it's someone that I don't know, but most of the time I'd give myself an 8 or a 9. Okay, so I'm looking at the chat box. I see some 5, I see some 9. Question again, what is psychological safety? Psychological safety is when I can ask questions, I can challenge programs, I can suggest ideas, no matter how small my position is, and no matter how senior you are. A company becomes innovative when everyone has the right to ask questions, when everyone has the right to challenge and say, hey, I think there's something wrong with that. Hey, I think there's something lacking in your presentation. And you do it because you care for the person, because you want what's best for the organization. How does psychological safety look like in the real world? It looks like this. At the bottom of it are employees who will say, I'm currently having family problems, but I think hindi to maiintindihan ng aking manager. He will never understand. Itatago ko na lang sa sarili ko. So there is absence of psychological safety. And then you have some people who will say, maybe sasabihin ko na lang kay Ana or someone from my team, naka-close ko. There is a level of psychological safety, but it is selective. The person's not willing to speak up. And then what you want instead is at the top of the pyramid. My manager will appreciate kung bakit ako hindi nagper-perform lately. I will say this to her because I want her to know my situation. That is psychological safety. Can I get a letter S as in psychological safety if you appreciate the concept, right? When you're able to speak up with no fear, na walang pangamba, that you're going to be judged for it, you're able to share your thoughts. And that's how ideas thrive for innovation. Same thing. How about in remote work? My boss is very busy and asking for a Zoom call might disturb him. Hindi ko na siya tatawagan. So there is absence of safety. And finally, maybe I'll just raise this concern via email, right? So, may psychological safety pero selective. Ayaw niyang sabihin ng diretsahan. I-email or text na lang daw. What you want is someone who will say, this task is urgent. So kahit kailangan kong tawagan ng aking boss, kailangan kong magpa-Zoom call, I need to contact that person. My manager needs to know this immediately. The person feels psychologically safe. Companies who shut down other people's ideas and people feel that they cannot speak up are companies who become stagnant in innovation. The innovation only happens from the management team, but the ones who are below, the rank and file, don't get to share their thoughts. Last slide. John, gets ko na. But how do I make it psychologically safe for my people to learn more and to become innovative? 3 quick tips. Number 1, please champion what we call as consulting downwards. Right? You might be noticing, bakit downwards? Di ba ang consulting dapat consult someone who's better, consult someone who's an expert. Bakit pa downward? Remember that when you already decided on a certain decision, don't just decide on your own. Sometimes it matters to ask your other employees, "Hi guys, I'm choosing between color blue and color red para sa damit ng ating brand ambassador. What do you think?" Kahit nakapag-decide ka ng color blue, magtanong ka pa rin. Why? Asking a question makes your employees feel that no matter how small their positions are, their opinions count. And the next time around, they will feel safe that they can contribute and suggest their ideas next time around. Consult downwards. Can I get a letter D as in downwards if we appreciate that? Right? Number 2, embrace feedback as a two-way street. Ang mga bosses at ang mga leaders, they have a tendency to just give feedback, but they don't ask for feedback amongst themselves. I know it's hard kasi masakit sa ego. But the best type of leaders are those wherein during an evaluation discussion, they will tell their employees, "Hey, here are my constructive thoughts about you, but now is your turn. Tell me how can I be a better manager? Tell me how can I be a better boss? I want to clear the path for you because when you succeed, I also succeed." Right? Finally, number 3, create moments of vulnerability. Kailan tayo nagiging close sa isang kaopisina? Can someone type in the chat box? When do we feel close to someone at work? We feel close to them when they have shared something about their life. They share something about their traumatic past, their biggest issue with their family, something that happened to them before that you wish that will not happen to them. Those are the moments of vulnerability. Diba? Yun yung mga moments sometimes na nasa pantry kayo or nasa business trip at meron silang shinare na information. Those are moments of vulnerability. I want you to do the same thing. Dapat tayo, we become more vulnerable by, for example, before a meeting starts, wag diretsong meeting agad. Ask questions such as, "Hi guys, before we start, let's warm up. How was your weekend? How's your family doing? How's everyone coping during COVID-19? And the more you ask questions that are personal without invading privacy, the more people feel that everyone is as human as everyone else in the room. Create those moments of vulnerability, right? Can I get an exclamation mark? Did we learn something today about psychological safety? I hope we did. And how that translates to innovation at the end of the day. You cannot be innovative if people do not feel psychologically safe to speak up. Organizations that promote psychological safety have happier, innovative, and engaged employees. Also, they stay longer in the company too. Okay. And with that, I am going to end my session. Can I get a letter C as in confident? If you feel more confident about managing and engaging our teammates. Can I get a letter P as in powerful? If you feel more powerful after this session on how we can go about our roles as leaders and managers or as HR practitioners in our teams. Okay, thank you. Here's my last quote from Dr. Oren Harari. Remember that the electric light did not come from continuous improvement of candles. Kahit anong ganda ng kandila, hindi yan magbabago. You have to think outside the box. You have to graduate from a candle to something totally new, and that's an electric light bulb. I wish you the best, and because it's going to be a weekend soon, I'm going to wish you an advanced happy weekend. Stay safe and continue becoming a champion of your team's welfare. Salamat po.
Okay, with that, thank you very much, Jonathan Yabut, for sharing us the secret to creating a culture of innovation even online. And that secret is psychological safety. Now, before we end the session with Jonathan Yabut, we'd like to ask him a couple of questions. Now, the data shows actually that a successful organization is about a phenomenal understanding of the market. We all know that a visionary growth strategy, a value-driven customer focus, a strategy that enables digital formation. All are true, right? But can we also agree that winning enterprise companies are innovative? Now, if we do believe it, Jonathan, how can we embrace now a multifaceted approach to innovation starting at the bottom? A while ago, we mentioned a while ago about the psychological safety, but how can we encourage now leaders to provide psychological safety?
Okay, so my last slide covered that part. So I mentioned a while ago, when you give feedback to your people, don't just cascade a feedback as if it's a podcast. Wala na silang say about it. Let them challenge your feedback. So,
Mhm.
for example, in evaluation, when you're about to do that for January or December, it will be great when your company allows appraisal forms to be challenged. Why am I getting a score of 5 when I think I deserve 7 or 8? And allow it not because you want your employees to become rebels. Allow it because you want your employees to discuss and to justify why they think they performed better. So many companies do that. I'm disappointed, however, because not everyone gives that opportunity. Many companies today, ang kanilang evaluation and appraisal, it's like a report na wala ka ng chance to debunk it. Para siyang report card sa school. Final na yung score ng 95 or 82 ng teacher mo. We always want people to have a healthy debate at the end of the day.
Now, for people to become innovative, now of course there should be a feeling of autonomous, no, or autonomy. Now, how do we empower employees where they feel they have a level of autonomy?
So part of innovation is empowerment, as you mentioned, but the opposite of empowerment in organizations is micromanagement. So down to the smallest level, it will be great that if you happen to be a leader in your small little ways, if you've noticed that your employee has already been doing well, let them go on their own from time to time. Small things such as, do you really need to be copied in every single email as if you're hovering like a helicopter? Small moments such as, if you created a PowerPoint presentation with 20 slides, let her present 5 of them. Let her be exposed to management. The more she feels that she is empowered, the more it creates a mindset, now that I can do things on my own, let me initiate other projects in the future without my boss telling it to me. Small steps lead to bigger and graduate to bigger steps later on.
Right. Now, for the last question, I'm sure you have also experienced this, and we all experience this. No? Why this fear is an innovation crippler, and why do we need to understand that, of course, failing is okay?
Because fear is the ally of a person who thinks that they're going to make a mistake. And we
Mhm.
feel that when we make a mistake, we get penalized for it. So in organizations, if you penalized every small thing, it doesn't teach people to avoid it, to avoid the mistake. It teaches people to avoid even trying in the first place, right? But when you celebrate mistakes, you tell them that it's not a failure, it's a near win. And those two things are different. A near win is when you made a mistake, but we got something out of that mistake. We learned something new. Try again. Because the more mistakes we create, the more we get to avoid them until on the sixth or seventh attempt, we finally get it right. So you have to create that culture in your teams that when someone creates a mistake, we will hold you accountable, but we're going to celebrate what we learned out of it. And when people know that it's not something that costing it will cost their lives or cost their job, people are more willing to push the boundary and become innovative.
All right. So thank you very much again, Mr. Jonathan Yabut, for those valuable insights and practices. We